Okay, well, hello everybody. This is our first episode, our first proper episode of
The Monster Market.
Monster Market.
I
So
love
this
it.
is the podcast that we've been wanting to do for a long time. And this is where we're going to talk about creatures from myth and folklore and
Urban legend.
urban legend and beyond. But there's another part of this podcast. Ben, do you want to?
For each podcast, we're going to be doing some art. We're going to be drawing one or more iterations of the creatures that we talk about and posting those up along with it, our various sort of interpretations of these creatures.
Yeah, so there will be illustrations accompanying each episode, and who knows what'll happen to all those illustrations in the future.
Well, in hopes they'll be collected together into some form. I think we can say that.
You blew it.
Oh, okay. Well, we could cut that part out. Guys, right. We're never gonna collect them together. It was a joke.
That's a pipe dream.
We would never do anything like that.
Wouldn't it be cool? But exactly. Do we need to introduce ourselves?
Let's go ahead and do that. It's episode 1.
Okay, fine. So you are Anakin Skywalker.
I am Benjamin Margaret Hatke, a artist and comics creator in working out of the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia.
And I'm Zack Gialongo. I'm also an artist and cartoonist, and I'm up in the cold gray New England area.
And what do we bring to the table as but beyond being storytellers? I just want to mention that we've been on monster hunts together before, at least one. We've traveled together a bit, and we've also gone to we've gone looking for creatures, right?
Yes, and I think we should save that story.
Okay.
But yes, we have gone monster hunting together, and it was a joyous occasion for me, and I think for you too, because you talk about it
absolutely, definitely, yeah. And now there's a format to this, and you had a really good idea about how to kick it, because we each have 3 versions or iterations of the on-theme creature to talk about, which makes 6 total. And you wanted to start out. You wanted to. We want to go back and forth. And who starts? You had a good idea for that. You had a special thing.
So, listeners may or may not know that I'm a big Star Wars fan, and you are too. And I've even done Star Wars work, some graphic novels and things like that. But I have in my possession an old coin, specifically from the Ewoks cartoon, detailing the Dulak shaman from the Ewoks cartoon from the early 80s. I just literally found this coin like in my drawer in my desk, and I was like, well, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use this coin to decide who goes first, with the head side being the picture of the Dulak shaman, and the tail side being his little description that's on the back of the coin. Now, before I flip this, let's talk about what this episode's monster is going to be.
Oh, that's right. We haven't talked about that.
No, it could be anything.
Could be anything. It's dragons.
It's not.
It's not dragons. It is. I say it's mermaids, but it's really a little bit more than that, right?
Yeah. So we talked about our first episode being mermaids, and we're kind of defining mermaids as any creature. There are mermaids and mermaid-like creatures across the globe through all kinds of cultures and traditions and stories and things like that.
Very broad, yeah.
Very broad. But for this particular episode, for what we're talking about, I've sort of defined it as an aquatic dwelling creature who is at least partially humanoid, right? So we're not talking about krakens or sea dragons or,
right,
monstrous fish or anything like that. It has to be partially humanoid, and it has to have an interest in humans. So in other words, it can't just be, the Loch Ness monster, which just kind of goes about its business.
right.
So, and the interest can be either benign or a malevolent interest. And is this a creature that is luring people to their doom, or is this a creature that wants to,
bring luck
or something like that?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So without further ado, should we go ahead and flip?
No, I think we should get going.
Okay. So, I'm going to let you call it. Do you want to be heads or tails?
Tails is a description.
So,
oh man, this is very mermaidy, isn't it? I'm going to go with tails.
Okay. So I'll be heads. Ready? It's tails.
Yes. Oh, is that good? I don't know if that's good.
Well, I think that means
I feel like I won.
Choose.
Oh, I feel like I won, but I don't know if I want to go first or if I want.
You did win. You get to jump in the water first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go first.
Yeah.
So I was gonna kick us off with the modern mermaid.
Sounds like a magazine or like
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a magazine you find in your dad's closet. I wanted to go with and it actually might be nice to kick it off this way, because I wanted to talk about like the iconic image that we all currently share as the mermaid. And I really like mermaids now. So I'm excited to start with this episode. But I didn't always kind of connect with mermaids as something that I like to explore and draw and stuff. But it was in Mermay a couple years ago when I was actually traveling and doing like a school visit or something, and I started to see online people posting their mermaids for Mermay, this drawing challenge. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that. But then I did draw one on a tablecloth and post it. And it just sort of became a thing. I did more. And then my daughters would keep coming into the studio after I was home and still drawing mermaids. And they were like, did you do your mermaid today? Like, and I was, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that this was a full project. And it ended up being tons of fun. And I turned them into like a little set of mermaid memory cards. And what I really liked was everybody knows that there's like the standard mermaid that we all kind of share. But there's a mutability of form, or you can do all these different variations of it. And it was really fun. So in researching for this, trying to figure out like where this modern shared idea of the mermaid came from, I found a really, really excellent book that's really, it's recent. It's from 2019. It's the Penguin Book of Mermaids. And I recommend it. It's a treasure trove of mermaid tales, and from ancient times to more recent. So here's my conjecture about this iconic version of the mermaid that we all kind of share. But I think the sort of like iconic mermaid form that we kind of are as a culture kind of share or immediately recognize. And this is mostly conjecture on my part. I haven't found anything to really back this up, but I'm guessing that it really, really got nailed down by the Pre-Raphaelites, right? Like Waterhouse has a famous mermaid painting that I think is based on like an Alfred Lord Tennyson poem. So it's going to be this like sort of medievalist romantic movement that sees the mermaid as particularly beautiful. And I think with painters especially, it really worked with the Pre-Raphaelites, especially with like the subject matter that they were drawn to, which was like myth and folklore and medievalist stuff. But also they had
swirly hair
and swirly hair. They also were big into the academic side of painting, which would be, essentially bring a beautiful model into your studio. And this kind of really joined those two things together, much like a mermaid is. It's almost a perfect version of that, right? The joining together of the figurative and the mythological. So, but anyway, in kind of researching that, I did find that there were like, this book did break it down into like 3 most common mermaid plots, or specifically this version of the mermaid that we're thinking of, 3 plots that kind of go cycle through. And one of them is the fleeting encounter, like the sailors' tales, where they see the mermaid and and it's this brushing up against the edge of maybe another world, but there's no, or like the Selkies will travel up onto land to listen to the people sing by the edge. And the second plot is which is not my favorite. It would be like the merwife plot, which is this domestic kind of examination of taboos and social mores and stuff like this, where like somebody will bring a mermaid as a wife and it usually goes poorly, and it seems to be a lot about this I don't know, tension between being with somebody who's unfettered by the social mores, and also they invariably attempt to domesticate this creature, and it goes poorly, and it's a little weird.
There's always an element of trying to tame this woman,
and it's an element of control, and it makes for interesting. It's a rich thing to explore. And then finally there's the abduction, right? And that tends to boil down to, hey, be careful around water because that can be dangerous. So that's very simple, but it's sort of like, you can see why it would endlessly recur, right? And I don't know, I think my favorite of the 3, and I've found good versions of the 3, and the book I want to talk about at the end is actually a merwife plot, but it's sort of the most beautiful and reimagining of the merwife plots that I've come across. But I think my favorite's still the fleeting encounter. I like the other thing I wanted to mention was when I found out about it, and it was only only as far back as 2013 when I was aware of this, but there's the Coney Island Mermaid Parade. Do you know about this?
I do.
It's awesome. Yes. It's something I really want to go to someday. And I mean, obviously, but it's just like, but I think that is a big celebration of the edge, right? The space between, right? It's a celebration of a lot of that. So that is in a nutshell what I like about the modern version of the mermaid. I think visually it's something like it's almost a symbol more than a fully fleshed out creature, right? Like to me it's like that like a child's drawing of a flower. Like it doesn't look like any, like, it's or a smiley face, right? It doesn't look like a human face, any specific face, but it's instantly recognizable. And that's what I think is cool about it, because we kind of share this instantly recognizable like form of the mermaid, and it gives us sort of endless jumping off points. And so I think I will close my modern mermaid thing. Can I read a paragraph from this book?
Sure.
This is from the introduction to the Penguin Book of Mermaids. And it says, the reimagined figure of the mermaid resonates for many today as fluid feminine self-possession or playful queerness. If the mermaid's overstepping the boundaries of gender or sexual propriety is transgressive, it's embraced as such and not punished. And the exposure to new currents across cultures promises further unpredictable shape-shifting, which to me says new and different stories. So that is my treatise on the modern mermaid.
Nice. Well, and just to like add to that a little bit, I was thinking about what you were saying about the fleeting moment.
The fleeting encounters, yeah.
And how, you hear about how, the origin of mermaids being, sailors seeing things like a sea cow.
Right.
And not identifying it. And like, you know, you look up a picture of a sea cow and like, yeah, you could see where from far away, if you didn't really know what you were looking at, it kind of looks humid.
But when you say fleeting encounters, it kind of comes together because it's the thing where you see it and you're like, did I? Because we've had that. Everybody's had that experience where like, did I see that? Did I really just see that?
Yeah, it's just a flash out of the corner of your eye, or
and then maybe you've heard stories about this before, and in your brain you're like, oh, that might have been what I saw.
Nice. All right. So, is it my turn?
It is your turn. I'm so looking forward to seeing what you got for me.
Well, so I think it's really interesting. You know, you listed off kind of those three concepts of mermaids. You know, the fleeting encounter, the sort of the captured, you know, forced marriage kind of thing. Because I think that each one of mine actually fits into one or more of those.
Oh, cool.
So my three mermaids or mermaid-like creatures. I'm gonna kind of go from. I've decided I'm gonna go from northwest of the globe to the east.
Wow, we're changing geography. This is a geographical journey as well. I like it.
Yes, we're gonna get in our boats and we're gonna travel that way. Assuming that you're looking at a modern map. All right.
I have my ancient map unfurled.
Good. All right. So the first mermaid that I wanted to talk about actually comes to us straight from Ireland. And it's called the Merrow. And it's literally just like an Irish mer people. And the Merrow, so they're actually called mermaids. And so I'm sure that there is some linguistic, you know, etymology there as well, but I'm not versed in that, so I don't know. But anyway, so mermaids, they look like what you typically imagine a mermaid, right? So they're described as being very beautiful women with the bottom half of a fish. They're also described as being scaly, having webbed fingers and green hair. So they're definitely, while they are seen as sort of beautiful, they're definitely the depictions don't shy away from that aquatic sea element to them. The mermaids are actually quite interested in humans. They are not violent towards humans. They are not malevolent towards humans. They actually have a lot of interest in humans, particularly human males. Now, the reason for this is because mermaids, there are the mermaids, and then there are the mermen. So this is a depiction of a mermaid that from the outset makes a distinction between male and female versions. Mermen are similar, but they are very ugly. They're very monstrous. They're very and they are malevolent towards humans. They're also sometimes described as having legs as opposed to a fish tail. So I'm not sure what that's about. But did you have a question?
No, I'm smiling, and this is all very interesting. I'm enjoying it so much.
So you have the contrast between the mermaid, who is beautiful and kind and benign, and then the mermen, which are ugly and abusive and violent. And so, there's speculation that maybe that's why mermaids are interested in finding human husbands. Now, there's another aspect to the Merrow that I think is very interesting. So all of the Merrow have something, and I'm going to try to pronounce this. This is like old Irish.
Okay, this is going to be a challenge.
Yeah. It's called a Cohaleen Druth, which means magical hood or little hood. And so all of the Merrows actually have It's described as a red hood or a hat. And this hood or hat, both the men and the women have these hats. That hat allows them to live underneath the water. So the idea is that there's this item, there's this object, which if a human were to get this hood or this hat, would now have leverage over the marrow. And so you see this story in things, you mentioned like selkies before, and we can talk about selkies in another episode. But so the idea is twofold. With the marrow men, if you were to get a marrow man's hood, you would be able to maybe, threaten it, be able to say like, hey, stop causing all these problems for our fishing village. Stop knocking over our fishing boats, or you'll never get your hood back.
But can you put it on and breathe underwater?
I don't know. I couldn't find anything specifically. It seems like maybe it's specific to the marrow, and that the only use for a human is to then have control over a marrow. Because then, so the other stories, which, you sort of alluded to before, are young men who get a marrow maid's hat or hood and keep it and force her to become their wife.
Mm-hmm.
So, certainly in the modern age, that's a little icky. And the other thing I didn't quite understand was, again, they're described as having a particular interest in humans and human males. So like, why do you have to force it into marriage?
Yeah. I mean, it could be different versions of the story, the same story told in different ways. Because like, yeah, in the modern times, that's kind of icky. But if it's ending poorly for the sailors who are trying to force them, then maybe it's not so icky. Maybe it's a story that ultimately is like, hey, come on, don't try to force people to love you.
Right. So, well, and now there are also allusions to the concept that if you have a marrow wife, you want to hide the hood somewhere, because the marrow wife and any of your children that you have with her are eventually going to feel a very strong pull to go back to the sea. So it's, it's still sort of like keeping them in captivity. But yeah, then
don't let her talk to her people, or she'll want to go back to her family.
You don't want those marrow maids getting ideas.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
But there are stories about these couplings and children, and the children look human, but they often have shiny, scaly skin, and they almost always have webbed fingers. So that's how you can tell if someone is half marrow.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I like the idea that I think it's interesting to have that concept of the male and the female both different, but also very like clearly defined within the mythology, versus other creatures and stuff. You don't always see that, like for example a centaur,
right, there's
not like traditionally like a female centaur, or there might be, but it's vague. This has a very definite, a male version, a female version, plus they are very different both in appearance and disposition,
and what they're desirous of. Yeah.
So cool. So that's the Irish marrow.
I love it. That was definitely a good one.
All right, you're next.
Okay. Well, interesting to me, the description of the marrows being, an Irish of origin folk creature with green hair, because I want to talk about an English folk creature called Jenny Greenteeth. And Jenny Greenteeth is very much a stay away from the water because it's dangerous creature. She's described as hag-like and thin, with the aforementioned green teeth and long weed-like green hair.
Delicious.
And wonderful, yes. And so it's like the creepiest idea, right? And it's also like lurking around the edges of riverbanks and ponds and just waiting to pull children down underneath. To the point where I think it said in Yorkshire they sometimes just call like pondweed or duckweed like by the name of Jenny Greenteeth, right? Because pondweed like that can look solid, right? So you can be walking, and you can step, and you're thinking, especially if you're very young, this is still ground, and then no, you're down in the muck in the water. And one of the other reasons I like the idea of Jenny Greenteeth is because that description of, you know, a mermaid like that, or a sea person like that, or a water creature like that, kind of fits with where I live. I walk up and down the side of the bank of the Shenandoah River a lot, and you know, walking up and down the Shenandoah, like I'm not going to imagine, you know, Ariel singing on a rock by the sea. It's much more of a Jenny Greenteeth type of area, especially at this time of year. And I can definitely like see something like that, especially like the sides of the river are all silty and mucky. And that's the kind of creature I would imagine living there.
Well, what if she hauls herself out of the river and starts singing beautifully to you?
I think, wow, that's a good question. I don't know if Jenny Greenteeth is having a song, like a specific siren song, but that would be good. Like I think a mermaid for the Shenandoah would be something of a Jenny Greenteeth, and might sing like, I don't know, Appalachian ballads.
I think I just
might have
idea.
A banjo. Might have a banjo. That'd be cool.
I think I just like the idea of a reimagining of Ariel, or a reimagining of the Little Mermaid, but she's like this crusty,
mucky creature. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think there's definitely room for a mermaid tale like that. So the first was, but Jenny, the other thing I like about Jenny Greenteeth is that, like, it's one of those creatures where once you read about it, like, there's all these, like, and I'm sure you've had this experience where you'll read a sort of, like, years ago, you'll maybe read about this niche kind of folkloric creature, and then whenever it pops up in other stories, you get that same kind of like, oh, I know that feeling, right? So my first Jenny Greenteeth, like where I found out about Jenny Greenteeth was from, and I know you know this book, Brian Froud and Alan Lee's book of fairies. So this was a seminal book for me, and
I can picture the illustration now.
You could picture the illustration even, right? Yeah, and you can see there's this gross picture of Jenny Greenteeth like reaching up out of the water for a child's shoes. And most of these, so many of these pictures in this book are like old fairy pictures, beautiful old fairy pictures, things that seem from another age, right? But what's great about the picture of Jenny Greenteeth in this book is that she's reaching up out of the mucky water, holding onto these roots that are very similar to the roots of the trees like that I'll see in my canoe. And she's reaching up for a child's foot. And if you look, it's a very modern child's foot. It's got like modern socks on and tennis shoes.
High tops.
Which, not high tops, but you know, like little tennis shoes with little pull tabs on the side. It's just modern enough that it gives you the chills, right? And then so I'd held that idea of Jenny Greenteeth in my mind for years, and then like, I don't know, the two other places that I remember seeing Jenny Greenteeth and being like, oh, is the Hellboy story The Corpse, where have you read The Corpse?
Yes, but
it's my
enough
favorite. Definitely my favorite Hellboy story, and it's where you definitely should, because like these fairies have left a changeling in this. It's like it's like the 50s, and this woman out on the moors is like, I know that's not my child, and then Hellboy comes. The husband comes home. He's like, I found somebody who can help us, and he finds out that it's the fairies, and the fairies are like, we'll trade you back for the child if you bury this old guy who we love. You got to find him a place to be buried. We can't go on sacred ground, but you can, and you can bury him for us. And he's like, okay. And they give him this corpse of their friend, and the corpse is talking to Hellboy as he's like walking him across the moors looking for a place to bury him. And at one point in the story, he runs into, like he drops the corpse, and when he picks it back up, it's missing an arm, and Jenny Greenteeth has pulled its arm, this corpse's like severed arm, down into the water, and is like gnawing on it, and she's all gross, and it's great. And then just randomly, Jenny Greenteeth shows up in one of the Dresden Files books, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's Jenny Greenteeth again. So
well, it's a great name too, and I love that. I feel like it's a very British folkloric kind of thing.
Yeah.
To name a creature, not
it's not a creature name. It's a name.
It's a proper name. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, watch out for Jenny Greenteeth, and you're like, oh, that is extremely descriptive, and I will never go where she might find me. Definitely not.
Yeah.
And this will definitely segue into my next one, scaring children with proper names.
Ooh.
So there you are.
Nice. And you mentioned that you maybe have a book recommendation.
Oh, yeah, I do. Favorite mermaid stories. My favorite mermaid story of all is The Animal Family by Randall Jarrell. It is decorated. It's funny, it says decorated by Maurice Sendak, not illustrated by Maurice Sendak. And it's true. It's like, what I like about that is there are no pictures of the characters, but there are chapter heading illustrations that are of nature and very evocative of the story.
Decorative.
And they're decorative. And this is the one I was going to talk about, which kind of turns that merwife plot on its head, right? Where it goes well. And it's about a hunter who lives alone on an island, and he eventually hears this mermaid singing by the shore, and he's lived there his whole life, and he's got this cabin, and he barely remembers his parents, and it's very wild, and he just hunts and works on his cabin to live, and he finds this mermaid, and he ends up bringing her home, but it ends up being more of a story of them learning from each other and domesticating each other, and it's about found family, right? It's about building your own family, which I've definitely got a thing for. So it's a beautiful story. Definitely, it's very haunting and poetic and beautifully illustrated, and I like it very much.
And what's the title again?
It's called The Animal Family by American poet and critic Randall Jarrell. Oh, I also had another thing to say about Jenny Greenteeth.
Oh, yeah.
Just really quickly. So I liked seeing Jenny Greenteeth and all these different things, but I also, so in the last Julia's House book, I put my own version of Jenny Greenteeth in there, and she's much more of a Muppet in my version. No arms or legs even, just this big, shambling head that's pink with green hair and green teeth. So it was my version.
Okay. My go?
I think, yeah, it's
okay.
Your go.
So we're going to go. So I started off in Ireland, and we're going to go a little bit south and east. And I'm going to talk about the Drac. So we are going to Gay Palais, or at least we're going to France.
Wow.
And the Drac is a French mermaid, although I think what's interesting about this is in everything that I looked up about the Drac, there's sort of conflicting reports. So most of the time it is described as a feminine water spirit, but in some sources it's actually described as a water dragon that can,
which fits the name, right? When you say Drac, I don't necessarily think of something feminine,
right? Yeah,
human.
But regardless, this creature is a shapeshifter, anyways. So maybe possibly its true form doesn't matter. But all of the lore surrounding it fits more with a mermaid creature than it does with a dragon creature. So, like I said, the Drac is a feminine water spirit that can change shape. In fact, it's sometimes known to change shape into a human to go shopping in the markets very early in the morning, before anybody discovers that it's not a human. It's actually a drac. They live actually right in the Seine. So there's yeah.
So it really wants to go up in the market and buy like a baguette.
Yeah, exactly. Or paper towels.
That's great. Yeah, right. Nice.
Now, again, like so many other of these creatures that we're talking about, one of its primary functions is to lure people into its clutches. And it does this usually by changing shape into something mysterious. So sometimes it'll be like a gold ring that floats on the top of the water. Sometimes it'll be like a light or an orb of energy. It's also been known to change shape into like a very beautiful goblet that kind of rises up out of the water. And there are stories about, again, them luring young men to their watery graves.
Right.
But there's an interesting twist, I think, to this. Primarily, what the drac does is the drac is actually looking to lure young women into the water to raise its children. So it'll turn into one of these, a ring, a goblet, anything like that. And the young woman will come over and see that. And that's when the drac gets her. And the drac will bring her underwater. And the woman has to be the nursemaid, has to raise the drac's terrible children. And it's almost always for 7 years. So I guess dracs mature at age 7 or are mature enough to take care of themselves.
Yeah, age of reason. Yeah.
And then once that is done, the drac actually releases the woman back onto dry land. So you have all these stories about like you said, sort of warning people or again, luring young men to their deaths through, seducing young men to their deaths. But this is like a mermaid that's looking for a babysitter. And I've heard that a good babysitter is hard to find. And so clearly the drac has pulled out all the stops.
The drac's like, goblet? Everybody likes goblets.
Come on.
I'll turn into a goblet. Perfect. I love how goblet is one of the alluring things. Like if they want to like lure a dude down into the watery depths, okay, I'll turn into a babe. Right. But anybody else is like, oh, goblet, yes.
Ooh, check out that cup. I'm gonna go get that cup.
I can. Oh yeah, it's like the Grail. I can almost reach it.
Yeah.
Let it go.
But yeah, and so I have to assume that the drac gives the girl some sort of breathing ability. I don't know, maybe covers her in some sort of membrane so that it can breathe, because 7 years is a long time. But this story is then often has been used to explain people who go missing and then just miraculously return with seemingly no explanation.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, it's that magic number of 7. It's always 7.
It's a magic number.
Yeah. And then I guess it was like the 13th century that they were writing about this mostly. But like I said, living in the Seine, and then there were other cities where like they would have these pools of water that collected under buildings and things like that, and they would specifically say like, oh no, there's a drac in there, things like that. So I mean, it's hard to feel. I guess I feel some sympathy for the drac. Like you said, the drac just wants to go shopping like everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Get it? Need somebody to take care of this shit, kids, while it gets a roll of paper towels.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, can you watch my kids while I go run and get a baguette? I haven't had any
a moment to myself in so long. And it's like, I'm not one going to a party. I just want to go shopping. Can you give me this, please?
So I guess the takeaway is, if you're looking for someone to watch your children, hang out in a lake or a river and wait for someone to walk by.
And then turn into a goblet.
Hold a cup out to them, see if they take it, and boom, there's your babysitter.
Yeah. I like turn into a goblet. I think if you got a really good, like, some cardboard and tape and made a real goblet costume for yourself, I mean, you'd be a giant goblet. But I bet you could lure some. I'm going to try that. I'm making a goblet costume. I'm going to lure some people into the water.
I think you should document this.
Oh, yep.
For sure.
Drac Hatke.
Ben Dratke. Dratke?
Something like that.
Okay, you go.
My last one is another stay away from water story. And this is going to be the most obscure one. And it ended up being even more obscure than I thought.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, this is about Luca Basla.
He lives in my building.
Oh, that's not that obscure, is it? I thought this was really obscure. Luca Basla. So this is like something I heard firsthand, and then had gotten wrong. So I was actually in a panic before this. Okay, let me back up. So a couple years ago, I had taken a hike. When we were spending part of the year in Italy. Anna's Zio Carlo took us into the mountains on this long hike, and it's this mountain called Montorsaro. So the bear, and I had been looking out the window and seeing this huge mountain for years, and being like it's really craggy and high. I think it's the highest I've ever been was when we got up to the top of that, and it was just this incredible day. I'd been looking at this mountain for years. I was finally had gone on this hike to get to the top of it. You could see like the whole world, it felt like, from the top of this like craggy peak. And then on the way down, everybody was telling stories, and I remembered we were with Anna's cousin Ida, and in my memory, Ida had told this story about Luca Basla and how everybody growing up was terrified of Luca Basla. And Luca Basla was simply a creature that lived in the wells, and with the, very so similar to Jenny Greenteeth, with like long white fingers and these eyes that would stare up at you out of the wells, but not even the riverside, like these pits that go way down and are narrow. They're wells, right? But way down at the bottom of the well would be the Luca Basla waiting to pull children down. And I was like, this is amazing. It's just regional to Gravagna. It's just something that they remembered the old people telling them about. Don't go near the wells. The Luca Basla will get you. And so before this, I was like, I actually reached out to cousin Ida, and I was like, oh, can you tell me anything? And I was calling it Luca Basma, and as two words.
Oh, that's
the
guy that lives in my building.
That's, you see, like, easy to mix up.
Yeah.
So I reached out to cousin Ida. He was like, can you tell me anything about Luca Basma? And then Ida wrote back to me. She's like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like when it becomes a Twilight episode, and you're like, did I imagine Luca Basma? No. In fact, I was like, are you sure? I wrote back, I could swear that you told me about this creature called Luca Basma that lived in the wells. And then she was like, oh no, that was Zio Carlo told that story while we were up on that hike. And so she messaged him, and he wrote back, and and it was exactly what she had said, but it's one word, Luca Basla, which is just like, and it doesn't even mean anything. It's just like the boogeyman. So he said, yes, they told us children, I'm just going to read, like he said, they told us children because the wells were a danger, never go near the wells because there was the Luca Basla that pulled you down. And we were terrified of the Luca Basma. And he's like, think of the psychology of our old men. And it's just an indefinite being that was going to get you. So I don't know. That's the whole story of the Luca Basla, but it's just one of these things that like is like it feels like you don't know when it started. Like it could be like the 40s, right? It could be as recently as the 40s or 50s that they started making this up out of the clear blue, but it's so similar, right? To Jenny Greenteeth and Peg Prowler and these others.
Well, I guess that was going to be my question is like, did you Google this creature or like search?
Yeah, and I couldn't find anything else about it.
So it's like really specific to just this one.
Very specific to this one space, but so similar, right? And it's still just this like boogeyman that lives in the deep well that will pull specifically children down.
Wow.
And it just seems like this is a psychological recurrent thing that says don't go near the dangerous water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell you because it's dangerous. I'll tell you that this horrid thing will get you, which I suppose works, right? But it's still like you raise your eyebrows at it, like scare, like. But it's also like I don't know. It's a and you know, as much as I was disappointed when I saw the movie The Village, right? It's the same thing, and my disappointment in The Village was the creatures weren't real. They were made up by the parents to scare the children and keep them there.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we can edit that out.
Nah. That movie is old at this point.
It's old. There's got to be some kind of cultural rule about how old a movie can be before you can start talking about it. Or we could just put a little like warning in there. Anyway, Luca Basla has stuck with me. I like how it's hard to pin down, you know, like it could be even 100 years previous that they started talking about Luca Basla. It's hard to know, and it's so wonderfully creepy and similar to the other stories.
Is there any sort of physical description at all?
Not that I could find, but I have this feeling of her being like ghostly white and long fingered that might have come from the original conversation. They were talking about the Strege at the time, like witches and stuff at the moment. So like witch-like. So yeah, it's like something I want to like. I mean, if we draw, I might try to be drawing that one. Like, might actually draw the Luca Basla.
Yeah, for sure.
So there you go.
All right. So my last one. This one I hope you'll like because it kind of dovetails into cryptozoology, cryptids a little bit. But so we're going to go. So I was in Ireland and then I went to France and now I'm going all the way over to Japan.
Nice.
So this is a Japanese yokai, which is a type of Japanese spirit monster. And it's called the Ningyo. And that literally means human fish. And so this is just a fish, like a carp, that has a human face or a human head. And it's, other than that, like it's fairly unremarkable. Like there's not a lot of, there's not really any lore or mythology about its behavior or even like, you know, if it's smart or anything like this.
Or if it's, oh, cool. If it's just a creature.
It's just a creature. But the main lore surrounding it is that if you eat its flesh, you'll gain immortality, or if not immortality, very, very, very long life. So there's a folk tale about a fisherman catches one of these and he takes it home and he invites a friend over. He's like, I caught this amazing fish. You got to come, you know, I'm going to cook it up right now. You got to come over and eat it. And friend's like, yeah, sure. So he's cooking up the fish in the kitchen, and the friend goes and looks over and he sees the fish. He sees that it has this human head and he's like, well, I'm not going to eat that. That's weird. And so, you know, Japanese culture and manners and all that stuff being what it is, the fisherman brings out the fish for his friend and serves it to him. And his friend, instead of eating the fish, secretly puts it, like wraps it in a napkin or something, and then like sticks it in his pocket. Because he doesn't want to appear rude not eating the fish. So he leaves and he goes home, and he forgets that this wad of fish is in his robe. And his young daughter wakes up in the middle of the night hungry and smells this fish. So she goes over and she sees it and she eats it. And her father catches her doing this and is like, "Oh no, I can't believe you ate that fish." So the girl grows up normally, and once she gets to be like in her 20s, she gets married, and her husband continues to age and grow old, but she doesn't. And then her husband finally dies, but she is still appears to be in her early to mid 20s. And so her life just goes on and on and on, and she has many husbands, and she is widowed many times. So finally it's like 800 years, and she becomes a nun, and she decides that there's nothing left. She doesn't want to live anymore, really. So she finds some remote cave in the mountains and seals herself up in the cave forever. So the idea behind this is that it's sort of the double-edged sword of immortality. It's like you may think you want to be immortal, but when you're outliving all of your friends and family and everything that you've ever known, I guess she's still sealed up in that cave. I don't know.
Oh man,
yeah,
that's so beautiful and ethereal.
It feels very Japanese to me.
It does, but it's just wonderfully strange and open-ended, and I like that. This is like, because this is the last one we're going to talk about, right?
Yeah.
This is a great note to end on.
Well, there's more.
Oh.
Do you know, if I said to you, the Fiji mermaid, do you know what the Fiji mermaid is, or what a Fiji mermaid is?
Can I guess?
Please.
Is that, because I know that there was a what do you call it? A mermaid hoax. Mm-hmm. Is it a hoax mermaid?
It is.
Is it P.T. Barnum's false mermaid?
You're getting ahead of me, son.
Damn it. Okay, sorry. I didn't know what it was called, but I was guessing that that's what it was called.
It was a perfect guess. Okay. So the Fiji mermaid is, and there have been several Fiji mermaids. Okay. It's this like desiccated, mummified little mermaid. And the first recorded Fiji mermaid was purchased from Japanese fishermen in 1822 for $6,000.
Really?
That's $6,000 in 1822 money.
Yeah.
And so this Fiji mermaid was actually on display, I think, in London and some other places. And P.T. Barnum, who you already cited, P.T. Barnum saw this thing and he ended up buying it. And he had all of these naturalists come in to try to verify it, to try to authenticate it. And none of them could authenticate it one way or the other. And so P.T. Barnum, of course, there's one born every minute,
being who he is,
decides it doesn't matter if this thing is real or not. People will pay to see it.
Right. He did the obvious thing.
He's an entrepreneur. So he starts traveling around with this Fiji mermaid. And this is like 1845. So, this Fiji mermaid has already been around for like 20 years. But yeah, so he starts displaying this Fiji mermaid. And then, unfortunately, that Fiji mermaid got lost in a fire. So the original...
That one... I did not know that.
Yeah, so the original Fiji mermaid does not exist.
I was going that my next thing was going to be, where is it? Can we make a pilgrimage?
Well, there are other Fiji mermaids. So what a Fiji mermaid is it's a monkey. It's like a spider monkey that's been mummified and then attached to a fish.
Right.
And most we can never know for sure, but most sources believe that the original Japanese fishermen were making these as a joke, like just as like a silly, like, oh, look at this thing, and then whitey Westerner comes over and is like, what is that? And they're like, oh yeah,
I'll pay you $6,000 for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. But it is related to this idea of the ningyo, of the human fish.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's sort of like the same.
So that's where it all comes together. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Now I have another little thing for you, and actually I realize this may not make great radio, but I'm gonna send you a picture. So just even in modern times, well, I can send you a picture or you can Google this yourself. So there's video of if you look up human face carp, it's freaky. So it's a real carp. The one that you'll see was found in like a lake in China. And
I see.
Yeah, and so all it is the markings on the top of the carp's head look like a human face. And I mean, enough that like, yeah, you look at it and it's very freaky.
There's a I think it's a Cory Doctorow. It was in a Cory Doctorow book, the idea of like some kind of, like different versions of a future, but like where these fishermen were like, if the back of the crab looks a little bit like a face, it's unlucky, you throw it back. So they're fishing and like not purposefully doing natural selection for the crab. So they're always throwing the human face looking ones back. And so they, generation after generations, those are the ones that are going and reproducing. And so you get more and more human-like faces in the backs of these crabs. It's like unintentional sculpting of crab shells.
Yeah.
Through natural selection. It was a fascinating idea. I wonder if this is anything like that, or if they're just random.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But what I liked about this creature was these sort of modern iterations of just like this really modern connection with both this human face carp and the Fiji mermaid, drawing a direct line to this old Japanese folklore.
That is super fascinating. Wow. Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Did you get a postcard this week?
No.
Shoot. I sent you a postcard in hopes that it would arrive before the episode. Too bad. Too bad. Ben failed. I did not get it in the mail quickly enough. I sent you a good friend of mine gave me a couple postcards from the Mermaid Museum in Maryland.
Oh.
And I sent one of them your way in hopes that we could at some point visit the Mermaid Museum.
Well, we will definitely visit the Mermaid Museum.
Yeah, I think on some future journey we should do that when we do the live version of this.
Well, I want to say that there is a Fiji mermaid at the Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Maine. I'm pretty sure I've seen one there.
Okay. Well, that sounds like another stop on our grand tour.
Monster tour.
Yeah, the monster tour. Maybe that's what all this leads up to.
So Ben, so that was our first episode of Monster Market. So what I want to know is, I think we should each pick what our favorite creature was from what the other one presented.
Oh, okay.
So I'll go first. So let's see. So you had Mermaid Classic.
Yeah.
You had Jenny Greenteeth, and you had Luca Brazzi. What was it?
Luca Basla. Luca Basla.
Luca Basla. Mermaid Classic is just that. It's classic. But I think I'm going to have to... I don't think that one's going to make the cut. Jenny Greenteeth is pretty great. And like you said, like that illustration in the fairy book, who I believe that one was an Alan Lee illustration.
I think it is. I think you're right.
Really haunting and really incredible and is like indelibly burnt in my brain as well. But I love the niche local specific purview of what is it? See, you've got
Luca Basla.
Basla. See, I keep thinking Bosma because you said that before.
Because that's what I'd said before. Yeah,
Luca Basla. Like, to me, that is. I love how specific to that community that is.
Regional creepiness.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. So I'm gonna pick that as that was my favorite.
Okay, cool. I'm hard pressed to pick a favorite. You had the Morrow or the Morrow Maids.
The Merrow, yeah.
Merrow Maids. And they were the Irish creatures, and
with the hat.
With the hat. Yes. And I think that is super evocative. And the fact that they're basically married to like water trolls.
Yeah.
That just builds a whole world. And it's very fairy tale-esque. So there's a lot there. I liked the Drac, but no, I like the Drac because it's so different. The needs of the creature are so different. A babysitter, right? Mm-hmm. It's so different, but I keep getting it mixed up. Like, I know it's old, right? Like you said, like what was like 1300s or something like that.
Yeah, 13th century.
Like it's medieval, right? 13th century, right? So it's definitely like prime medieval, but like I keep in my brain, since it wants to go to market, I keep making it like modern Parisian. Mm-hmm. Like I'm really stuck on that. And then but hands down, I think the strangeness and just otherworldliness and the touching on immortality and eating a fish stick out of the pocket of somebody who came home. That's kind of gross and wonderful. But what was it called again? It's the
Ningyo. So Ningyo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that.
I'm going to say that was I'm going to say that capped off the discussion perfectly and was my favorite.
Well, I also like, you brought it up that with that one, that it's just a creature. Like, it's not something that has a lot of lore or behavior around it other than the flesh immortality thing.
Which makes it even more wonderfully this carp face, like we'll put that in the description, pictures of this, because it's like now I'm seeing the whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's like seeing it for real.
Yeah.
So that's something.
But like you could see maybe a more like Western fairy tale, and I know that there are fairy tales like this where like maybe the fish is bargaining with a fisherman, right? Like the fisherman's like, oh, if I eat you, I become immortal, and the fish is saying, well, yeah, but if you don't eat me, this, that. And from what I've read, there's not really any of that surrounding this creature. It just is. Mm-hmm. It's just a part of the landscape.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Yeah. All right, so that was our first episode. Our plan is to do 13 of these.
Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed this immensely. And we do not, as far as I know, have not just yet decided on our second creature.
We have not decided. Yes, there are many things. We don't have a shortage. That's for sure.
Yeah. But we'll definitely make an announcement of what the second one will be in expectation of the second episode dropping. All right, well, I guess it's time to go. So what do we say?
Well, I'm going to say that for Ben Hatke, I'm Zack Giolongo.
And for Zack Giolongo, I am Benjamin Margaret. Thank you for visiting the Monster Market, and please come shop again.
Come back real soon.
Hey everyone, David Universe here, producer and audio engineer for Ben and Zack's Monster Market. On behalf of the team, thanks for listening. Music for this episode was created by Twinstrumental. If you'd like to see sketches of the creatures discussed on this episode, as well as other mystical goodness, please visit us at monstermarketpod.com, as well as Instagram and Facebook at monstermarketpod. For creature recommendations, or just to say hello, please email us at monstermarketpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, beware, because they be monsters out there.